Morning, everybody. How are you? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean. Bugsy's inside. Guess who's been naughty again? I hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things you love with those you love doing them with. Please do me a favour, guys. Smash the like button for me on the video. Smash the subscribe on the channel if you haven't already. 80 away from 7K. Quite remarkable. Bugsy and I want to say massive thank you to all the support you guys show. Welcome back to the new subscribers, or to the old subscribers that have been here before. Welcome to the new ones. Hope you enjoy your stay. And lastly, guys, hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topic. And because it's Friday, happy long weekend to you. Happy coronation if that's what you're into. Got to talk about the Crystal Palace game. But before I do, there is a little bit of transfer news out there. And I know, same rules as yesterday. I know it's irrelevant. I get it. But I've got to bring you something, and there's no real updates in the managerial search. There's no updates in the director search, apart from that yesterday the report said that Daniel Levy and Scott Munn have concluded their due diligence on their player search and have now fine-tuned the list into a short list of about 6 or 7 candidates that they are now having deeper discussions with. Now, I don't really understand what they mean by concluded their due diligence. I'd imagine that would just mean doing background searches, making sure that, you know, that they're kind of good characters, that they play a specific type of, you'd hope, a style of football that has been considered, and that they are potentially interested in the job, and that they are not going to be, you know, whatever, like anti the ethos or going against the grain or whatever. I don't know, I'm speculating, but whatever it means by the fact that they've concluded due diligence, they have concluded it. Nothing else to go on. Same names still being mentioned as top candidates. Nothing on the directorship. Let's pivot to the transfer news today. 3 names that have been mentioned in the aggregators and are getting around the houses. 3 names I haven't actually mentioned before being linked with Tottenham. So we're going to go through them, and I'll give you my thoughts on them. Please let me know your thoughts on them. First and foremost is Marc Guehi, Crystal Palace centre-back, 22 years old, highly valued. He's English, homegrown, he's young. His asking price allegedly is £45 million. It's a lot of money for a player that I personally am not a huge fan of, but I know a lot of people are. I know like Henry Wright and Saba are very favourable or in favour of bringing him into Tottenham. Look, he clearly makes a massive improvement and a step up on what we have, but then so do most defenders at the moment. So the argument for me is not so much around whether or not he's good enough. I think he is. He's a good player. I think he's physically very capable. He's fast. He's strong. He's quite tall. He's got the attributes that you would hope for if you wanted to play with a higher line, so that if there were mistakes, they could get back and cover. And, you know, and cover the ground quicker and all those things. Where I have an issue with him is similar to how I have issues with Romero, and that is more around the kind of mental attributes. And for me, the frequency of issues that I've noticed with regards to his positional awareness and his concentration, similar to Romero, I have issues with. But look, they are both young players, and maybe those things are, you know, are not things that they'll always struggle with, but they're just maybe based on inexperience and things that, you know, you gain and gather with improvements, hopefully over time. I personally would just, if we're going to try and find someone to partner Romero in the middle or on the left-hand side of a back 4 or back 3, however you want to think of it, then I want someone who I believe comes in with not just the physical attributes that I think are necessary and the ability to play the ball on the floor, which, by the way, Guehi's good at as well. But I want someone who can be like a leader, who can be commanding, considered, composed, and brave, and have that kind of mental rigidity that I guess comes with experience and comes with other players that we have been linked with. The 2 players I mentioned yesterday, Gleison Bremer and Aymeric Laporte, are miles ahead of Marc Guehi, in my opinion, on those attributes. And they're not old. Guehi is 22. Laporte, I think, is 28, and Bremer's 26. And as I said yesterday, by all accounts, all 3 of them are available for the same amount of money or similar money. The other 2 don't come with the homegrown thing, so that would count against. But, you know, I think also there'll be a longer line of people queuing up for the services of the other 2 than Guehi. But look, if he comes in and it's a decision that the club and the manager and the director make, then I'll get behind it. He's definitely an improvement. I just think that for the money spent, there's better value out there, personally. Let me know your thoughts. Next up is Roma, ex-Chelsea striker Tammy Abrahams. Had a blistering first season, having left Chelsea season before last. And I think he scored 27 goals for Roma last term. Hit the ground running. And look, brilliant move from him, leaving a club in England where he's obviously satisfied, settled, but wasn't getting enough minutes, taking the brave step to play overseas in a language he didn't, a country he didn't know, and in a language he doesn't speak or didn't speak. And he's gone over there and really, proved himself and made a name for himself. And brilliant first season. This season, it hasn't been so great. I think he's only scored 8 or 9 goals in all competitions in about 42 games or so. And I think that, he's even come out himself and said that he struggled and his confidence is rock bottom. He's a human and he's trying his best to get back to his former self. And he'd asked for patience from Roma. And I'm not sure if Roma necessarily are going to offer him that. Rumours out today that he is, people at Roma are looking for him to move on and that they actually would slash the asking price for him. I think £70 million is the price, 70 million euros rather, is the price that Chelsea have a buyback clause inserted into the contract. But they're actually willing to drop that to about 45 million euros, which is about the same amount of money, give or take, that they paid for Chelsea for him in the first place. And that, possible suitors are back in England would be Manchester United or Tottenham. And possibly even Chelsea. What will be interesting for me is, I think that like a really good player who, I think he suited the Serie A. I'm not entirely convinced or why it was that it didn't really work out for him first time round when he was at Chelsea. But as a player, a very talented player, quick, gifted, gifted feet, thinks on his feet. He can take snapshots from distance. I've got a lot of time for Tammy Abrahams. For me, I think it all depends on what happens with the Harry Kane saga. If Harry Kane stays and signs a new contract, then obviously it's a dead story. And maybe he would go to someone like Manchester United if Man United don't get Harry Kane. If Harry Kane does leave Tottenham and Tottenham do manage to get somewhere in the region of like £90 million for Harry Kane, which I still think is a stretch and a big ask anyway. But if that does happen, then Tottenham have got to make a decision around what they want to do with the money. Do you go and spend it all trying to replace Harry Kane? Do you go and drop it on whoever the name is out there, like a Ivan Toney or a Dusan Vlahovic from Juventus or whoever, right? Take your pick. Rasmus Højlund. Or do you go and get someone like Tammy Abraham for 45 million quid and then use the other 45 million quid to go and get that second centre-back that you need so desperately? The money that we shouldn't have spent on Richarlison, in my mind, should have been spent on a centre-back. And now we're having to face the consequences of those decisions with the performances and the league position that we happen to have right now. So I've got no problem with Tammy Abrahams, and I think 45 million quid for a striker of his calibre is actually pretty decent value. What I'll be interested to see is what happens to the valuations with the European strikers like Rasmus Højlund, who has hit the ground running for Atalanta. Phenomenal talent. Is he going to be available this summer? Are they going to cash in on him? If so, what does that look like? And where does he go to? It will start a merry-go-round of forwards moving on, number 9s changing places. So I think it's just going to be a very fascinating story and one that will last throughout the summer with regards to Harry Kane. Hopefully Harry Kane signs a new contract in my mind, but if he says he doesn't want to and he wants out, then I'd rather sell him for 90 now than hold on to him for another year and lose him for free in 15 months' time. That's my take. Again, let me know yours. What are your thoughts on Tammy Abrahams? Whilst we're on the forward conversation, last transfer rumour is Noah Okafor from RB Salzburg. A player that I hadn't heard too much about, if I'm entirely honest, but he's been linked with Tottenham pretty heavily this morning in a few different places in Austrian media. He's a player that's played 69 times for Salzburg, RB Salzburg, and has scored 25 goals and 15 assists. So 40 goal contributions in 69, 70, call it, appearances. That's a really, really special return. Of course, it's in the Austrian league, so take it with a pinch of salt. But I did go onto the Y-Scout tool, did look through him, and look, he can play on the left, he can play on the right, he can play through the middle, he can play as a second striker. He's very much a utility player. He's very, very good dribbler of the ball, not afraid to have a shot. He's tall, he's got quite a bit of pace for him as well. He's only 22, and the key thing about him is there's only 15 months left on his contract. And I think that Salzburg are willing to let him go for about 12 to 14 million euros. And I think that is the sort of price tag. And I think that's the sort of player. If you look into him, I think he looks, again, difficult to really judge because it's the Austrian league and you never know how they're going to step up. But if Tottenham are looking for those next players that can come in and do a job and contribute, that aren't going to break the bank, where you don't have to risk, financial sustainability on players that you just don't know are going to hit the ground running, I don't think that there's better value for money in the market than paying 10 to 15 or 15 million quid for this guy, Noah Okafor. I think he is I think he looks really, really interesting from what I've seen. I don't know if you guys have heard much about him or seen him. Do you watch Salzburg much in Europe or in the Austrian league? Let me know. From what I've seen at that price point, I think it's very interesting, and it's something that if we're not going to make the Danjuma deal permanent, knowing that Lucas Moura's off, not really sure what happens to Brian Hill next season, we are going to have to find some sort of squad rotational players that can play out on the wings in the event that Sonny gets injured or Decky still struggles to come back from his rehab with that hamstring niggle. I'm interested in him. I'd like to know your thoughts. Take a look and drop a comment beneath. Lastly, guys, as I say, just very, very quickly, it is Saturday tomorrow. It's the Crystal Palace game. Look, for me personally, I want to see Tottenham do well. I want to see Tottenham finish the season well. I want to see Ryan Mason get a win under his belt. For me, the formation is pretty simple. 3-4-3. I want to see Fraser Foster in goal. I'd like to see, as I said before, the consequences of poor performances be recognised and acknowledged, and that other people or other players get their chance rather than poor performances being rewarded with continued places in the first team. So for me, the back three tomorrow in my world would be Romero, Longley, Ben Davies, and drop Dyer to the bench. Don't think it will happen, but that's what I'd like to see. Perisic on the left, Porro on the right, Højbjerg and Skipper in the middle, because I don't think Pape Sarr is going to start, and I think that's kind of tried and tested at the moment. And then a front three of Sonny, Kane and Richarlison. Really happy for Richarlison that he got his first goal against Liverpool. Obviously devastated with the way that the game finished. And look, you know how I feel about Richarlison. I made my feelings very clear on him. I don't particularly rate him as a player, but I like the person. I want him to do very well. And it's in Tottenham's best interest for him to do very well. So I would hope that he can build off the back of that goal. I'm sure he's chomping at the bit to finish the season strong. It makes absolute sense to bring him in. Decky was atrocious against Liverpool. The worst performance I've seen from him in the time he's been at Tottenham. And Sonny, of course, is also getting back to his best. So I think the front three makes sense of Kane, Sonny and Richarlison. No space for Danjuma at the moment, but that's okay. He can come off the bench maybe ahead of Decky should the need must in the game. From Crystal Palace's perspective, look, at the start of the season, if you look on the fixture list, Tottenham versus Crystal Palace, you would usually expect that to be a game where you can get the 3 points. At the moment, with Tottenham playing how they play, and with Crystal Palace, the resurgence, the galvanised version that Roy Hodgson's getting out of them, it's going to be a very, very difficult game. An interesting game. I predict it to be high scoring. I'm going to go 3-2 to Tottenham, but I think you'll see goals. I hope that Tottenham don't concede in the first 3 or 4 minutes. What I'm also interested in figuring out or looking at and observing, and let me know if you're going, what your plans are. I want to see what happens with the protests outside the ground. Obviously, the last time we were there Thursday night, the protests were 3 or 4 times bigger than we've seen before. 200 or so people were there, give or take, when the pictures and the videos were taken. So I'm interested to see whether that number is higher or lower than Thursday. It's a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, so you'd expect maybe people have got more time to be there if they want to vent and show their feelings, show their discontent with what's happening at Tottenham. I also think that it's going to be interesting to see how the Tottenham fans react given what happened at Liverpool. It was a spirited comeback, but ultimately we lost. Also, we haven't seen any real movement in any of the key decisions from the board over the last week with regard moving this story forward. What happens with the directors and the managers? So are the fans going to have more reasons or less reasons to be voicing their disapproval of what's going on. For me, it's interesting. Can't wait to hear what happens at the stadium. Let me know if you're going. Keep me updated on Twitter, DM me, whatever. I want to see what's happening and whether the fans are behind the team or whether they have different priorities. Me personally, obviously I won't be there, but I respect everyone who wants to go and get their voices heard. That is the point of living in a democracy. If you're unhappy, you can say it and show it. And I want everyone to represent the way that they feel and what they expect from their club. So good luck to you all. Be safe, be happy, be healthy. And I will see you tomorrow. Like, subscribe and comment, guys. And as always, bye-bye.